Good morning.
Good morning.
The time is 9 a.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the second day of CSLB board meeting. It is April the 18th, and my name is Diana Love, and I am the board chair. Happy to see all of you here this morning with your lovely smiles. Today, Rodney Kopos has been approved absence, and board member Mary Tykert will be leaving today around noon, I believe, or maybe a little later. Vice Chair Michael Mark, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please rise, remove your caps. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Robin, can you please call the roll to establish a quorum? Present.
Rodney Kopos, excuse absence. David Deljoy.
Here.
Miguel Galarza.
Here.
Amanda Kaya. Susan Granzello.
Here.
Alan Guy.
Here.
Jacob Lopez.
Here.
Michael Mark.
Here.
Amy Nutt. Yep. Steve Kennelly.
Here.
Jim Ewing.
Here.
Mary Tykert.
Here.
We have a woman.
Thank you, Robin. I'd like to again welcome Mr. Henry Nutt III. He is a C Specialty Contractor member. This is Mr. Nutt's second meeting. His first meeting was yesterday during the Day 1 Strategic Plan session. Welcome again, sir. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Elizabeth Dietzen Olson, hope I didn't mispronounce your name too badly, who is the DCA Regulations Counsel assigned to CSLB. Welcome. You're welcome. Joining board members at the table that just established a quorum is Registrar David Folk, Chief Deputy Registrar Mike Jameski, Board Counsel John Ken, Public Affairs Chief Catherine White, Licensing Chief Carol Gagon, and Enforcement Chief Steve and Executive Office Analyst Robin Williams. One more preliminary item of business before we get underway as a point of information. At the June 13th board meeting, the board will select new board officers. To prepare a possible slate for board officer consideration, I have appointed two prior board chairs, Mary Tykert and Susan Granzello, to a two-person nominating committee. David will provide you with a board officer questionnaire next week to fill out should you be interested in applying for a board officer position. We have a full agenda today, so I will be expedient in leading this meeting. Item B is public comment for items not on the agenda and future agenda items requests. The board values public input as part of our consumer protection mission. To allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, I am limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this would be the time where you can make them. If you have comments on one of our agenda items, we encourage you to wait until we get to that item. Of particular note, if you are here today to comment on the battery energy storage system issue in agenda item H, there will be ample time to provide your comment when we get to that item at approximately noon today. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment. Also, we're not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda for a future meeting. And finally, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you do not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because the board members may be the judges and by law are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record in the case. At this time, are there any members of the public who wish to address the board or offer a possible agenda item for a future meeting? I see no one recognizing to speak. Do any board members have an agenda item they would like to place on the future meeting agenda? I see no persons wanting to speak. Moving on to item C. We would like to take the next two agenda items together. The review and possible approval of December 13, 2023 board meeting minutes and February 15, 2024 licensing committee summary report and the February 15, 2024 and December 13 minutes. I'm repeating myself. And March 21, 2024 legislative committee meeting summary report, which are on pages 103 through 123. Board members have any edits to either the December 13th, 2023 meeting minutes or February 15th and March 21 committee meeting summary reports? Are there any edits? Could I get a motion to approve the December 13th minutes, February 15th, and March 21st committee meeting summary reports?
Move to approve.
Do I- Okay. Could you please repeat your names for the record? Who did the
David
motion?
Delatorre. This thing's up.
And the second?
Oh, it's on. They're on. Mine's on. Mine's on.
Are there any board comments?
Miguel Galarza.
Aye.
Amanda Gallo. Susan Granzella. Alan Guy.
Aye.
Jacob Lopez.
Aye.
Michael Mark.
Aye.
Henry Nutt.
Aye.
Steve Pinelli.
Aye.
Jim Ruane.
Aye.
And Mary Tykert. Motion passes.
Thank you, Robert. The next item is C, the Registrar's report found on page 137. Although there is no packet content, the two items to be addressed are the 2023 accomplishments and activities report, update David Folk.
Thank you, Chair Levin. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start with the 2023 Accomplishments and Activities Report. That is available now on the CSLB website under What's New. I just wanted to very briefly comment on some of the CSLB division highlights, starting with enforcement. In 2023, more than $40 million was returned or paid in restitution to consumers, and the enforcement staff were responsible for 3,833 legal actions brought against violating contractors. Our information technology department, they were instrumental in furthering our ability for our licensees to renew their licenses online. They had over 300,000 transactions, and also they worked very diligently in obtaining the approvals to upgrade our interactive voice response system. That's a system where the public calls an 800 number, can do a license check, get to an enforcement staff, or talk to somebody within our licensing or other divisions. In licensing, we scheduled 51,000 exams, and they did a wonderful job in maintaining all 47 of our exams, keeping the exams updated within a 5-year cycle. Public Affairs is responsible not only for our outreach, but also our call center. They answered more than 99,000 calls last year. Didn't quite hit the 100,000 mark, but they came very close to it. So we want to thank the staff for their hard work answering those phone calls. And they provided vital assistance at the local assistance centers. It's so important when we have a declared disaster area. Also, I wanted to point out Stacy Paul, our budget manager. She's worked very diligently in keeping expenses in check. And Stacy, put your hand up. Yeah, thank you. And also helping us to establish a little over a 4-month reserve. So it's a job well done, I think, for all CSLB staff to try to look for ways to be as efficient as possible with the license fees that we receive. And so that would be the update on the activities and accomplishment report. And if I could move on to Spanish translation. Initially, I planned to show a slide. I was going to present a slideshow that I was able to present at the Director of Consumer Affairs quarterly meeting. But I think in furtherance of trying to be as expedient as I can with this update, I'm going to table the slides until the June meeting. It might really be an opportunity to show how we have translated slides with our joint meeting with the Nevada board. So I think it'll play out very well. Just wanted to point out, though, that we now have our top 10 examinations translated into Spanish. Our study guides have all been translated into Spanish. And just a real thank you to our licensing chief, Carol Gagnon, and our test development manager, Henry Dong, for the fine work that they did in getting this done. And I know we're looking at doing additional examinations. And the last thing I have is our study that was performed by Cooperative Personnel Services. This was a workload study that the board approved, hiring a consultant to look at efficiencies, to look at our production goals, how best to handle the approximately 15,000 consumer complaints that we're receiving each year. And so they did come up with recommendations. And yesterday in this room, we had strategic planning. And I'm real grateful to the board members that they really championed some of what CPS, Cooperative Personnel Services, has recommended. Excuse me. I did want to share that with all of you today. One thing is to create a desk investigation unit. This would be a unit that would be staffed by perhaps analysts that don't require to work cases that don't require field work. It could be a bridge for our staff service analysts who initially mediate our complaints to the special investigator series. That could be very helpful. It may also provide some additional staff to deal with the increase in consumer complaints. We need to have a more structured training program. So the board was in favor of creating a training module, something we've had in years past. We don't currently have a structured training module today, but we're going to look into furthering that. And excuse me, the next thing would be looking at the procedure manual. We have a procedure manual for handling our investigations, but there's an opportunity to meet with staff to go over the procedure manual to see if there's any ambiguity or if there's any way to improve upon it. So we look forward to meeting with our line staff. They're out there doing the work, of which we appreciate so much, to see if there's any opportunities to have a more streamlined approach and give more clear direction. And the last thing is just IT improvements. It's something we're always looking at. They can be expensive. It can be time consuming. In our enforcement program now, we've implemented a program known as SharePoint, and that's something that we're real excited about, where it enables our staff to download forms, to look at sections of law, to plug into the reports. It's all about becoming a little bit more efficient. I would say the final thing is we're really committed here to looking at contractors that are responsible for many of the increased complaints. And we do have a program where we're looking at contractors that have more than 10 open complaints. Our goal would be to work with that contractor so that they can change their business model so they don't continue to receive complaints. But in the event that they do, and if there are serious violations, we will be taking action. because we don't have the resources to handle any more complaints than we're receiving today. So we recognize that right now, especially our enforcement staff, they really are burdened with a lot of consumer complaints. We are committed to implementing the CPS workload study recommendations, but also looking at opportunities to work with the industry. I'm glad there's a lot of industry reps here with us today to not receive the consumer complaint in the beginning. We can't be quality control for contractors. We just don't have enough staff. You know, just in closing, and I'm going to close with just a kind of a summary of our enforcement program. We have 70 non-sworn investigators. We have 7 sworn investigators. We have 32 staff service analysts. So you're looking at, if you do the math on that, you're looking at around 105 to 110 people to handle 15,000 consumer file complaints a year. That's not a lot of people. So they are working extremely hard to try to manage this. We're keeping our cycle times down. But our goal is to reduce the amount of consumer complaints that we're receiving against licensed contractors. And we do prioritize and want to investigate the unlicensed, but we want to make sure the licensees are taking care of their customers. And that would be my update. Oh, just one last thing. I wanted to mention that our September board meeting is tentatively scheduled for September the 5th. So Robin will be surveying all board members next week, but I hope that date would work. It'll be up to our next chair to determine if that will be an in-person meeting or it will be hybrid. But September the 5th is the date that we've selected at this time. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any public comments? Seeing none?
I think Susan has it.
Oh, yes, Susan.
Thank you, Board Chair, and good morning, everyone. On page 141 begins the budget update. This page summarizes the budget and expenses for this fiscal year 23-24. CSLB has a final authorized budget of $82 million. The year-end projections are we expect $91.5 million in revenue, $78.5 million in board expenses, and $63 million in mandatory external cost. Revenue should exceed expenses, which would increase our reserves to $32 million or 4.5 months at the end. If you flip the page, the first chart shows fiscal year 23-24 budget and expenses through February. So far, we have expended 64% of our budget authority. The chart directly below shows our revenue through February. Overall, I'm happy to report that we are exceeding prior year revenue by 5.3%. On the next page, the chart highlights our final budget. With the adjustments for this fiscal year, they increased by $3.2 million, from $78.5 million to $81.7 million. The increase in budget is mainly due to approved bargaining unit agreements to increase staff salaries, retirement, and health benefits. Directly below the chart explains the direction of Budget Letter 2327, which was issued by the governor in December to immediately reduce our costs to address the state's significant general fund deficit. Further guidance was then provided by the department in early January, outlining an approval process to secure mission-critical purchases, contracts, travel, and other expenses. This is through a new exemption process. To date, CSLB has submitted 44 exemption requests through this process, and I'm happy to report 57 have been approved, but 0 have been denied. So we're doing well. Flipping the page to 144, the chart includes our fund condition, which projects out to 24-25. The middle column is current year, which shows our beginning fund balance at 25 million. If we end the year as realized as discussed on page 151, then we should increase our reserves this year to 32 million. Then if you look at the last column, which is next year's budget year, you can see we continue to gradually replenish our reserves to 5 months. Looking over onto the next page, this chart is the construction management education account. As you can see, the fund is healthy and continues to receive a steady donation of license contributions. We appreciate the administration approving the grant disbursement increase this fiscal year to $225,000 for the schools. Lastly, let me quickly touch on the statistical summary details on the next 3 pages. I'm excited to report through February, we are seeing 17% increase in original received and almost 25% in new license issued. Renewals also appear steady at 2.4% from 2 years ago. This concludes the budget update, unless you have questions.
I would be remiss in my duties not to congratulate you on the reserve. That took a lot of work, and working with management and staff in that effort. Contrast this to the dark days of 2020 when it was less than 1 month. So again, great job. That's ensuring the continuity of CSLB. Thank you, Stacy, and all of your team and associates. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We appreciate your guidance all through the last 10 years? 9.
Thank you, Stacy. The next item is C5, Administrative Update regarding Personnel and Facilities. The update is on page 149. At this time, I will turn to Chief Deputy Registrar Mike Jameski. Before I turn it over to Mike, let me just ask, were there any public comments for the budget report?
I'll return this.
Okay, seeing no comments for the public report, I'll now turn it over to Mike.
Good morning. Briefly, the update regarding administration, personnel, and facilities. We'll just hit the highlights here. Page 152, 37 promotions in the third quarter of the fiscal year, which is great. We maintained an 8% vacancy rate, which is well below sort of the 10% line that we try not to exceed. On the bottom of page 153 regarding contracts, the main highlight here is kind of our next big priority for contracts is the request for proposal to study CSLB resources to address unlicensed practice and unlicensed activity in disaster areas. So unlicensed practice broadly throughout the state and unlawful activity and unlicensed practice in disaster areas. The board may recall they approved in December an increase from $75,000 to $200,000 for that contract because the $75,000 did not get any bids. It's a lot of stuff to study for $75,000, so we're optimistic the $200,000 will be successful. However, you heard Stacy mention a moment ago, budget letter 2327 regarding the expenditure freeze statewide. We bumped into that, and we now need to justify as mission critical, which we believe we can do, our RFP. I hope to submit that in May and get the RFP out there for bid. As far as facilities, the main thing here, actually, I don't think we mentioned it yet, the Contractors State License Board is undergoing construction on its first floor bathrooms. It's unfortunate timing because we have a lot of members of the public here today, but I understand the upstairs bathrooms are unlocked and you don't need a badge to access them. So that's where the restrooms are for today, but the new restrooms are great. They're long overdue, long needed construction. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Any comments or questions from the board members?
This thing doesn't, well, there it is. Quick question, you mentioned the promotions, and I'm sure they were well-deserved. Were there vacancies? And if so, were they due to retirement? And were the vacancies that were caused because of the promotions, filled?
There we go. I would want to, before answering that, I'd want to get the actual data, but I know that you're right, every time somebody promotes, they leave a vacancy. But for us to maintain that 8%, it means that the levels are balanced. Somebody promotes, somebody else comes into that position, either interior or we have a policy here to, when we accept applications, to get those interviews scheduled quickly. And we always try to maintain that vacancy below 10%. There have been some retirements. I thought that data was here, but I don't see it. But I think we're pretty confident that we're able to maintain a consistent level of staff to make sure that we're not impairing our ability to do our jobs. I don't know if that really answered your question, though.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comments? Seeing none, let's go to item 6, which is information technology update. And the update is on page 155. And I will turn to Information Technology Chief Jason Perez.
All right, found a mic. Thank you, Board Chair Love, and good morning, everyone. On page 157 begins the information technology update. Today I am pleased to present the latest technology initiatives. These were spearheaded by our IT Advisory Committee. Board members Granzella and Board member Gallo are part of that IT Advisory Committee. Our initial initiative that we have is that transitioning to the Amazon Web Services Connect. It's a cutting-edge interactive voice response system, an IVR. We are scheduled to launch this in May of 2024, so shortly in the next few weeks. This new platform will dramatically improve our call routing and management. It ensures quicker and more efficient customer service interactions. In addition, the system will allow the public to perform still license lookup and also to be able to get the license application status. AWS Connect is designed for scalability and flexibility, which will effectively handle varying call volumes and allow for future enhancements. It promises an enhanced security standards, and it is expected to be more cost-effective by reducing the need for physical infrastructure. Moving on to the next initiative, which is security, we have initiated the implementation of a privileged access manager system, which will help minimize the potential for a security breach. And if a security breach does occur, a PAM, or Privileged Access Manager, helps limit its reach within the CSLB infrastructure. We are currently in the user acceptance testing phase. The system is critical for controlling the privileged accounts. The full implementation is on track for completion by June of 2024. This development is crucial for enhancing CSLB's cybersecurity posture against emerging threats. And our last initiative is our business modernization. Just recently, Department of Consumer Affairs has approved our procurement package for automating the sole owner license application workflow. This approval is pivotal in the step of our business modernization journey and aimed at improving our service delivery and operational efficiencies by developing a 100% online application option. This automation will streamline processes, reduce the time and resources currently required, thus providing better service to our stakeholders. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open to any questions or feedback you may have.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public?
I want to say that we were able to renew our license online within 2 or 3 minutes. It was just a pleasure doing that rather
Would you like to take the podium so we can all hear you?
I'm sorry.
Would you like to take the podium and speak so we can all hear you?
Oh, I didn't mean to be that.
Come on down.
Yeah, just a quick note for those in the room. Obviously, we're having some microphone issues, but we, oh,
Interrupt the flow of the work. So I do apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow of the meeting here, but I just wanted to say that, yes, we were able to renew our license in February online. It was, less than 5 minutes, and it was just a pleasure to have the confirmation right away rather than waiting weeks and all that. We were able to do our license fees online, and it was just super. It was just easy and so much easier than the previous years. So that's all. I just wanted to say that.
Can you tell us your name, please?
My name is Karen Polstra. I'm a C46. And we drove up from San Diego today to participate in that meeting, so thank you.
And thank you for your positive comments. We love hearing positive, good things. Next is the Bagley-Keene update, and there is no board packet content for this item, and I will turn it over to Department Consumer Affairs Counsel for the board, John Ken.
Thank you, Chair Love, and good morning, everyone. At the board's request, I've been asked to give a high-level overview of the 4 types of meetings that are available under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act as it's been amended for January of 2024. Like I said, there's 4 options. The 2 options that existed before the amendment in 2024 still exist today. The first one of which is what we're doing here today, which is a public meeting, one spot, accessible to everyone, public comment, but all in one location. The second original type of meeting is a teleconference meeting where the board is in one or more physical locations, each of which is accessible to the public, all of which are accessible remotely for public access. The 2 new types of meetings, one is a meeting for teleconference for advisory boards only, which is rarely used, but it's for non-governmental decision-making meetings for advisory bodies like advisory committees. And those can be held completely remotely, as was done during COVID, where everyone has access through the phone. And then the 4th type of meeting is a kind of a hybrid of that, which is a quorum of the board being present at one physical location and other members of the board being available at other locations that need not be open to the public. And those also have remote access for public participation. So I know I was given this briefly at a high level, and if any board members have any questions, I'm available anytime.
Any questions from the board?
Through the chair, I just have a quick question regarding executive in general. And that would be, since we're in good financial shape, we have some money behind us now, but given the fact that the state of California is in a budget crisis, is there a restriction on us using those funds even though they're there?
Well, there is to a certain extent. Stacy, would you like to answer that? Maybe explain how we're doing exemptions to try to get permission to spend the funds.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're under the direction of the governor, so there is a deficit. So we have to abide by the budget letter 2327, which the department gave us guidance on what we can, the procedure, the exemption process that we can go through to get approved for these. So like for the June board meeting in down south, we had to get approval on that. We had to be very mindful of what staff went and cost and everything that went into that.
And Stacy, how many of exemption requests have you put forward, and how many have been
44. And so 57 have been approved. it might be higher than that because some of the staff don't tell me on the back end if it was approved. But for the most part, I have heard no denials. We did get one denial and we pushed back because it was an auto renewal on one of our public affairs subscriptions, and we were able to get approval. So they're working with us, the department is. But we're trying to be mindful on the cost. Like, for instance, if Jason submits something on IT, because obviously IT is very expensive, he might say, we're only going to buy 5 copiers, even though we might need 10. And so the governor likes to see that, okay, well, you're making an attempt to save.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any comments from the public on the 4 meeting arrangement types? Okay, seeing none, I will continue forward to licensing. And I'm going to turn Licensing Committee Chair Alan Guy to present.
Thank you, Chair Love. Good morning. I am Alan Guy, Licensing Committee Chair, and I'm providing the Licensing Division update today with assistance from Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon. I will highlight a few items for the board. Moving on to the Licensing and Testing Statistical Update, Agenda Item D1, which begins on page 163. Regarding applications, the table on page 165 indicates the number of applications received for new licenses, additional classifications, replacing qualifiers, and home improvement salespersons. As you can see, in February 2024, CSLB received over 4,500 applications, more than in any of the last 11 months before that. In 2023, CSLB received over 47,000 applications. This is approximately 4,000 more applications than CSLB received in 2022 and more than were received in the 4 years before. Although each of the 5 types of applications indicated an increase, the largest number was in original exam applications, with an increase of close to 2,000 applications. On page 166, you can see that all of our processing times are staying close to our under 2-week goal, continuing the trend CSLB Licensing Division has held since last spring. Staff are doing an excellent job at keeping up with incoming applications, even with the increase in all types of applications. The goal of staying below 3 weeks to first handle applications is a customer service benchmark. It ensures all types of applicants hear back quickly about the status of their application and are able to move forward in the licensure process without delays. As seen on page 168, renewal applications are about the same in calendar year 2023 as they were in 2022, with over 117,000 applications processed this year. Addressing the experience verification unit statistics on page 172, CSLB held a licensing committee meeting on February 15th, 2024 to discuss experience verifications. The results will be discussed in the next section. I will now ask Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon to give the testing update, which starts on page 176.
Thank you, Chair Guy. Between March 2023 and February 2024, PSI exams administered a little more than 49,000 exams for CSLB candidates. In February 2024, CSLB hit record numbers with over 4,600 people taking one of our exams at a PSI test center. Currently, there are no backlogs in test administration. As seen on page 176, CSLB opened 2 new test centers for all of its examinations in August of 2023, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Wilsonville, Oregon. As you can see, 55 candidates have already taken advantage of the opportunity to test closer to home rather than having to fly to California to take their exams. The most popular test centers for CSLB candidates in California are in Sacramento, San Diego, and Riverside. And as you can see on page 178, the Examination Development Unit staff are currently working on 15 examinations. They encourage active licensed contractors to volunteer to help with the exam development process as subject matter experts. Staff update every exam every 5 years on average, so there is always an opportunity to participate. This concludes the Licensing and Testing Division update, and I will turn it back to Chair Guy.
Thank you, Chief Gagnon. Do any board members have any comments on this item? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on. Please turn to section D2, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the experience verification unit in the licensing division on page 181 of the board packet. The results of the February 15th licensing committee meeting on experience verification are addressed there. As detailed in the board packet on page 183, the California Code of Regulations, section 824, went into effect in 1980, requiring that 3% of all CSLB applications have their experience verified. In 1980, CSLB had far fewer licensing staff and did not look closely at license applications. So experience verification was necessary to ensure that applicants were qualified for licensure. At some point, it was determined that a 3% random poll was the most useful means of sending applications for field review. Since then, CSLB has greatly expanded their licensure staff and application review process. Now every application is closely reviewed by staff before being posted, and applications that do not meet all of the requirements are returned to the candidates for further information. As a result, the 3% review was for the most part transferred to the Enforcement Division, who took a different approach for the identification of applications for field investigation. The focus shifted more towards applications that were previously rejected or withdrawn for lack of experience, those flagged because of an enforcement investigation, those suspected of submitting false documentation, and other concerning issues. The 3% field investigation review currently being conducted by the Enforcement Division is more accurately described as actively flagged applications as opposed to randomly pulled applications. The conclusion of the licensing committee meeting is to propose the following. Experience verification should be moved completely to the Enforcement Division, along with the reporting in the board packet. The focus of experience verification staff and enforcement should be flagged applications, not a 3% random poll, to concentrate on applications of concern to the board. Do any board members have any comment on this item? Mr. Mark?
Thank. All right. So I appreciate you bringing this up for licensing. I noticed that 3% verification was very, very critical to CSLB. And just so everyone knows what we're talking about the percentage of experience when you're holding your license of being journey person or above. And the page 172 reflects the amount of the chart of the denials that's within licensing currently. So yeah, I think moving this to the enforcement is key. Enforcement has the tools to be able to do that deep dive on prior history. So I appreciate those, bring this forward, Chair Guy.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So Jim Ruane first, Michael Mark second. I believe I have to ask for board comment again. Any board comment? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none, Robin, can you take roll, please?
Diana Love,
Yes.
Joel Barton. Yes. Rodney Cobos, excused absence. David De La Torre,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza.
Aye.
Amanda Gallo.
Aye.
Susan Granzella. Alan Guy. Jacob Lopez. Michael Mark.
Aye.
Henry Nutt.
Aye.
Steve Pinelli. Jim Ruane. And Mary Teichert. Motion passes.
So motion carries, and that will conclude the update. Back to you, Chair Love.
Thank you, Committee Chair Ellen Guy and Licensing Chief Carol Gagon. And before we move forward to enforcement, I'm going to turn it over to Registrar David Folk for a comment.
Thank you, Chair Love. One of the enforcement agenda items is a discussion about unlicensed developers. We have a speaker coming up from Los Angeles to address the board on that agenda item. Unfortunately, the speaker had a delay in her flight, and so she's just now leaving the airport. So would it be possible to cover the enforcement agenda item without that second one and come back to it when she arrives? John, probably a question for you, or
Sure.
board counsel. Okay.
We can begin the item and then table her presentation for later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Going forward, the next agenda item is enforcement, and I will turn it over to Enforcement Committee Chair Jim Ruane.
Thank you, Chair Love. Good morning. I'm Jim Ruane, the Chair of the CSLB's Enforcement Committee. The first item on the enforcement agenda, E1, is the Enforcement Program Statistical Update, which begins on page 189 of your board packet. Out of approximately 220 positions in the Enforcement Division, there are currently 25 vacancies. The management team is working hard to fill these positions. Candidates have already been selected for 12 of the positions and are pending final approval. If you will turn to page 191 of your packet, I will go over some of the significant enforcement statistics. During the 8-month period from July 1st, 2023 to February 29th, 2024, the division opened 13,176 investigations. With current staffing levels, the optimum maximum enforcement division caseload is 4,860 pending complaints. As of February 29, 2024, the pending caseload was moderately higher at 5,391. The reason for the higher caseloads continues to be due to the increase in solar complaints, which are currently averaging approximately 200 per month. Staff service analysts and investigators in the Enforcement Division are working very hard to keep up with the incoming complaints. The SSAs are consistently exceeding their production goals of closing or transferring 30 cases per month and settling 70% of all licensee complaints. The weighted monthly case closing average per special investigator in investigative centers was 8 closures per month, 2 less than the closure goal of 10. Another board goal is to appropriately disposition of all 100 complaints within 270 days of receipt. As of February 29, 2024, 174 complaints exceeded 270 days in age. Highlights of some of the division's significant accomplishments between July 1st, 2023 and February 29, 2024 are as follows. Complaint mediation efforts by the Intake Mediation Center and investigative centers resulted in more than $26.4 million in restitution to financially injured parties. 275 letters of admonishment were issued. The investigative centers referred 398 of the 1,444 legal action investigations for criminal prosecution. 348 cases referred to arbitration, resulting in $4.3 million in restitution ordered to injured parties. 516 licensees citations were issued, and 418 non-licensed citations were issued. $492,421 of civil penalties were collected. $246,958 collected for investigation cost recovery. 119 accusations were filed, and 193 licenses were revoked from accusations and noncompliance with arbitration awards. And finally, I will provide a brief update on proactive enforcement, which is conducted by the 27 special investigators assigned to the Statewide Investigative Fraud Team, or SWIFT. This information begins on page 193 of your packet. During this reporting period, SWIFT conducted 16 undercover sting operations across the state, participated in 214 sweep days, and responded to 566 leads or tips received from industry and the public. Investigators completed 2,184 investigations with 551 cases resulting in an administrative or criminal legal action. Additionally, 805 advisory notices were issued for relatively minor violations. I'll now turn it over to Enforcement Chief Steve Grove to provide a couple of complaint highlights. Steve?
Thank you, Chair Ruane. The first complaint highlight I would like to share is at the center of page 189 of your packet and details a very successful mediation that took place in our Intake Mediation Center. A consumer in Los Angeles contracted with a solar contractor for a solar system installation. The contractor arranged for the project to be financed and was paid $52,500 for pre-construction expenses, then abandoned the project without performing any work. The consumer filed a complaint with CSLB when the finance company started demanding payment on the loan. Intake and Mediation Center staff contacted the finance company and explained the consumer had been a victim of an unscrupulous contractor who had abandoned the project and gone out of business. Initially, the loan company was unwilling to bend, but the persistence from the IMC staff paid off. They were able to convince the financing company to cancel the loan and forgive the $52,500 balance. CSLB is currently investigating multiple other complaints against the contractor for possible administrative and criminal action. The next highlight I would like to share is on page 190 of your packet. The CSLB Special Investigation Unit, SIU, investigated multiple complaints against licensed roofing contractor Arturo Aguilera of Topites Roofing. In January of 2019, Aguilera contracted with a consumer for a new roof on a warehouse for $125,000. Over several months, Aguilera received multiple progress payments totaling $120,000. He abandoned the project without providing any material or performing any work. In September of 2019, even though his license was expired and suspended, Aguilera entered into a contract with another consumer for a complete re-roof of a house for $82,000. Aguilera received a total of $44,500 from the consumer. However, no material was provided and no work was performed. In July of 2020, Aguilera entered into a written contract with another consumer to re-roof his residence and a shed for a total of $24,000. Aguilera collected $22,200 and then abandoned the project. The only work performed was installing the underlayment, removing the existing roof, installing the underlayment, and installing one gutter. The consumer had to hire a new contractor to complete the work. The new contractor estimated the value of the work performed by Aguilera to be approximately $4,000. The victim in this case was 71 years old at the time. In October of 2020, Aguilera contracted with yet another consumer to re-roof his residence for a total of $12,500. Aguilera was paid in full but abandoned the project after tearing off the existing roof and installing the underlayment. The consumer completed the roof himself and spent approximately $5,500 for material. CSLB's investigation resulted in an accusation being filed and the revocation of Aguilera's contractor's license in July of 2021. A criminal case was referred to the Napa County District Attorney's Office, who filed 15 counts against Aguilera. He pleaded no contest to the following violations: theft by false pretenses, grand theft, elder abuse, and accepting payment in advance of work performed. In February of 2024, the Napa County DA's office informed CSLB that Aguilera failed to pay restitution. Aguilera was back in court in October and was ordered to serve 353 days in jail. He was recently released after serving 6 months of his sentence. And that includes my highlights.
Thank you, Steve. That concludes the enforcement program's statistical update. This is an information item only. No action is required of the board. Any comments from board members? Michael?
Thank you, Enforcement Chair Ruane. I wanted to make sure that it's something that's highlighted. Nearly $21 million was provided back to the consumers of California by the hard work of CSLB via the mediation staff on page 190. As everyone knows, the underground economy is very critical here in California, and by not hiring those licensed contractors, there's always going to be some issues. And even the licensed contractors, unfortunately, CSLB becomes a mediation point instead of actually the contractors doing the right thing and getting the work done. But $21 million is a lot of grandma houses that's being done, and people are taking advantage of, just like the highlighted case that Steve stated. So great work, enforcement team.
Thank you, Michael. Any other comments from board members? Robin, any public comment?
I don't see any.
All right, thank you. The next item on the enforcement agenda is E2, review and discussion regarding unlicensed developers. This section begins on page 199 of your packet. At the request of board member Jacob Lopez, board chair Diana Love approved this agenda item to discuss construction industry concerns regarding license requirements for commercial developers constructing multifamily mixed-use projects. For background.
Sorry, Jim. Jim?
I'm sorry.
The speaker is Patty McCarron, and she
So
is
we're gonna hold
delayed
this
at the
whole thing?
airport. Yeah, she should be here in probably 15 minutes, so Patty McCarron will be speaking
Okay.
to the board, presenting to the board.
We're going to hold this particular item on enforcement until Patty arrives. And let's see, I think that'll be it for now.
Thank you, Committee Chair Ruane and Enforcement Chief Steve Grove. And at this time, I'm going to ask that we take a 15-minute break. So if we could come back at 10 after 10, I will see you all then.